The trust can be there, but it will slowly dwindle away at each promise that doesn't get delivered.
The reason that you start your own business is so you've got that freedom.
Yes. Yep.
And then the very thing that takes your freedom away is your own business.
Is that business. That's where sometimes we lose people.
Yep.
Is because we haven't made them feel like they're part of the loop.
Welcome to the Mastermind for Business podcast. This podcast is for you if you are a small business owner, professional in private practice, and you feel like you're just trapped by your business and you'd like to work out how you can scale your business to the point where you're working 20 hours a week or less, still making the same amount of money. In this episode, we're going to talk about a couple of things we learned from a dude by the name of Sharan Srivastava. He taught us two things. He taught us about the NFA policy and the 100% say do. Let's get that underway right now.
If you want more time, money, freedom, and have a business that's not reliant on you, then you're in the right place. Each week, Mark Creedon, along with some of the very best business minds in the world, will take you through simple, practical steps you can take to create the business you always wanted. From his own practical experience, Mark will show you how to work less, make more, and get the business you always wanted, the one that you deserve. Now here's your host, one of Australia's most sought-after business coaches, Mark Creedon.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Mastermind for podcast, where we're going to be talking about a couple of things we learned from Sharan Srivastava. And as always, joining us in the chair, Nick. Welcome, mate.
Thank you.
The crowd's gone wild here for you.
Mate, I'm used to it.
I watched a video of Sharan Srivastava. Now, Sharan is a real estate coach in the States.
Yep.
And he talked about a whole bunch of things that he used to really massively scale his business. But more importantly, it wasn't just scaling the business from the point of view of making more money. It was actually doing what we talk about, Nick, which is scaling the business to get more time, right? So that,
Sure.
and we're talking about how can I get to work less than 20 hours in my business and still make the same amount of money? Because most of the people that we talk about in our mastermind group, that's really what they want. In most cases, they say, look, if I made the same amount of money or I increase my revenue by 20% or 30% or whatever it might be in the next 12 months, I'd be happy, but geez, I wish I could get my life back.
Yeah. I think the juggle and trying to find that balance is where most people struggle, isn't it?
It's a bit funny, isn't it? The reason that you start your own business is so you've got that freedom.
Yes. Yep.
And then the very thing that takes your freedom away is your own business.
Is that business? Yeah. And I guess that's the, when you have the job, you clock on, clock off sort of thing.
That's right.
You get the secured income. You don't have to chase anybody for invoices. You've got, I guess, your hourly rate and stuff. So the cash flow is always there. It's consistent. Everything's consistent in a everyday sort of job.
Yep.
Where things can be inconsistent and can be very hard to predict when you're running a business.
And neither is right or wrong.
No.
Right? For some people, just being a worker,
100%.
clocking on, clocking off is ideal. And I think
Some people, I think, would be much happier doing that. I think some people are much happier doing that to take on the extra responsibility of having a business and the, I guess, the not having that security is actually not beneficial for them.
Here's the thing that I believe, though. I actually believe that there's such a thing as entrepreneurial blood.
Yep.
And I think for some people, and I'm going to talk about somebody particular, and it's somebody that you and I both know really, really, really well.
Gosh, here we go.
Yeah. I think that they have entrepreneurial blood coursing through their veins and they didn't realize it. So there's this guy I was talking to a number of years ago who said to me, you know what, I don't want to have my own business. You know what I want? I just want a job where I get paid and I can go fishing on the weekend, spend a bit of time with my mates, and as long as I'm paying the bills, that's all I want.
Yep.
And here you are 5 years later in your own business. Right?
Yeah, something like that.
So I think you had that entrepreneurial blood, mate. I think it was always there. You just didn't, you were at a stage in your life where, it was coursing through your veins. It just wasn't coming to the top. That's all.
I was always told in certain jobs, you've got loads of potential. Loads of potential.
Yeah.
And I think it was just that I wasn't meant to be in that sort of environment. That obviously wasn't meant for me, as you mentioned, sort of that different blood. And people are different. I was like that with school as well.
Yeah.
Some people really excelled in a school environment. I would have some teachers that would say I was the worst student they've ever had. And then I have some teachers that would say I was the best student I've ever had. So,
I think that comes down to two things. One, it comes down to potential. We'll talk about that in a second. But it also comes down to passion. Like, it's really hard to be good at something you hate.
yeah, 100%. And I think if you can find something that you are passionate about, it's much easier to be motivated for it every day, isn't it?
Right. And then accept the fact that it's not that steady stream of income, or it's not, and there's the battle, and it's worthwhile going through.
Yeah.
You mentioned potential. My old man used to say, your grandfather used to say, $2.50 will buy you a cup of coffee and all the potential in the world. I mean, that's when you could get a cup of coffee for $2.50.
$2.50, yeah.
But that's the thing, right? You can have all the potential in the world, but the fortune's always in the follow through.
Sure, 100%.
I mean, that was something Kurek Ashley taught me many years ago. Fortune is in the follow through, and that's really what I think being an entrepreneur is all about. So let's talk about 100% say do. The idea of this is that within your business, you introduce a concept which is 100% say do. That means that what you say you will do 100% of the time and to 100% of your ability.
So would this be something that you're making a commitment to?
Yes. You're making a commitment to it in terms of you personally.
Sure.
You're also making a commitment to it. You're asking your team to make a commitment to it.
Right.
So what we're talking about here, I think, is around productivity,
Yep.
right? So, in fact, Sharan refers to these as productivity upgrades. And a really simple productivity upgrade is this 100% say do. So what he's saying is that if you want to get more productive in your business, if you want to produce more efficiently, more effectively,
Yep.
a really simple thing to do, and it leads into the second topic we're going to talk about, but a really simple thing to do is to simply go, do you know what? We've got 100% say do. Guys, across the company, it's 100% say do. Now, I think there's a couple of elements to it. First is the 100% say do. The second thing is that anybody can call you on it. Now, this is something that I've spoken to all of the directors of the Metropole Group that we are about to implement across that company. We're going to introduce this concept where it is a 100% say do and anybody can call you on it. So number one, there's the concept or the policy. Number two, anybody can call you on it. Number three is there are only two responses to it. And those two responses are, I'm sorry, I'll do it today. Or here is an absolutely compelling reason why, and I'm sorry that I didn't get in front of it and give you that reason before you raised it.
Right.
Having those as the only responses. And you think about it, Nick. One of the cornerstones, I think, of having a team that's working well for you and having a team that you trust and they trust you is if they know that your word's your bond.
Oh, definitely.
Because it's really hard to trust someone who makes all sorts of promises and doesn't follow through, right?
The trust can be there, but it will slowly dwindle away at each promise that doesn't get delivered.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. So it's an incremental thing. It's a decreasing incremental thing.
100%.
So every time they come forward and actually haven't delivered on something they said they would, you're going to feel less likely that you'd want to continue to trust them with the next thing.
I think that's, 100%. I think that's in any situation, right? That's like a friend, anyone that, eats away at your trust a little bit.
So what you're saying is that's really like any relationship, which is a really interesting thing, because if as a business owner or the leader of a division within a business, we can see our relationship with our team as just being just another relationship, and we apply the same principles, it probably makes that relationship a bit easier, doesn't it?
Oh, of course. Yeah, you can only imagine that it would.
But it also can make it more challenging if, in fact, we don't follow that 100% say do.
Correct. And the repercussions would be different, right?
If you think about this say do, what I say is what I'm going to do. And the truth is, and I'm the first to admit it, right? There's been plenty of times in my life where I haven't followed through on the say do, right? Personally, probably to you when you were growing up, probably things I said I'd do and I haven't done them. But I think it's about making that your target.
Yeah, I also think with things like that, it's really important to be realistic.
Yeah.
Okay, because if you're you know, you've got these huge pipe dreams and you're going, and look, I'm all for shooting for the stars. All for shooting for the stars. 100%. You know, why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
You won't know if you don't try.
100%.
But I think it's about, you know, creating a commitment that you're actually going to be able to follow through on that isn't too far out of your reach.
Right. So that's a really interesting point, because I think that having this, we could look at this from two ways. Having a 100% say do means that if you say it, then you're going to goddamn do it.
Yep.
Right? But if we look at it in reverse, it may force you to adjust what you're promising.
Yeah.
Right? So here's a real example. I had a conversation with our CFO yesterday, and I said to him, hey, there's some taxation matters that need to be finalised. When will they be finalised? And he went, today. I went, okay, stop. Because what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to all the other directors and the founders, and I'm going to say, it'll be done today.
Done today, yeah.
But if it's not done today, now I'm going to look like a dick.
An idiot, yep.
Right? And I can do that all on my own.
I don't need your help.
I don't need someone's help to make me look
That
a
is
dick.
true.
Right? Yeah, true. So stop and think about it. Is
Yep.
that a realistic time frame? And he went, no, it'll be done by COB tomorrow.
Much more realistic.
Right. So in some ways, by having that 100% say do strategy, or that's the rule, not only does it force you to be accountable in terms of delivery, but it also forces you to be a little bit more accountable in terms of the promise you're making, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely see that. I think sometimes we make and sometimes we make a promise because we believe that we can deliver that.
Yeah.
We do wholeheartedly believe that we can deliver that, but things get in the way.
Yeah.
So I think it's also just being smart about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not necessarily, you're intentionally being deceiving or deceitful or anything like that.
No.
It's just that they're trying their best to impress.
Yep.
But making it more achievable for yourself is actually setting yourself up better than what you were if you were trying to impress too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. See, that's interesting. I was having conversation to Michael Yardney. I know Michael listens to this podcast, but you know, recently, and I said to him, the problem, Michael, I think, with a particular relationship he had with somebody, is they're telling you what you want to hear.
Yep.
And he said to me, no, you're wrong. They're telling me what they think I want to hear. And that's kind of in line with this 100% say do, isn't it? Right?
Yes.
So we lose the CFO. He told me what he thought I wanted to hear, which was, it'll get done today.
Today. Yep.
Not what I wanted to hear. What I wanted to hear was an absolute ironclad guarantee that I could take to the bank
Yep.
that this was going to be done.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah. And even if it was 2 days, 3 days later than what they'd initially promised, you'd much rather that.
Tell me it'll be at a week's time.
Yeah.
But you know what? If you say it's going to be a week, then it's a fucking week,
Yeah.
right? It's not 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
No.
Or
Then you
done.
have to be committed to it.
Interesting. So now let's talk about if we have this policy in place. Sharan said that there's only 2 responses, right? Well, actually, that's not true. He actually said there's only 1 response, and that is, I'm sorry I didn't do it, I'll do it today. But I think there's a second response because sometimes there's intervening factors that come in.
Yep.
But let's look at that first response. I'm sorry, you're right, I did promise that, I'll do it today. Imagine if you had a situation in your business where everybody agreed that was the process. 100% say do. And if you fall short of that, then your only answer is, I'm sorry, that's correct, I'll do it today.
Yep.
And now you've got this really clear where people feel that they can actually challenge you on that. Hey, Nick, you said you'd do this, because they know that the only response you're going to give is, you know what? You're right. I did. But I'm going to get it done today. Because the reason I like that is it removes the blame and the recrimination,
Yeah.
and it stops the excuses.
Yeah, it would. And I feel like it makes it more feel like it's a collective agreement that everyone signed up to. And I think, you know, that's where sometimes we lose people is because we haven't made them feel like they're part of the loop. Then, you know, even though other people might be getting the same sort of treatment, they feel like they've been singled out.
Yeah.
You know, because we haven't made them feel like they're part of the loop or part of the decision.
One of the things that we say is an advantage of group coaching that we do in our Mastermind Business Accelerator program is this collective momentum. There's
Yep.
shared wisdom and collective momentum, right? So there's this collective momentum that comes as a result. So you're right. We've got this collective thinking.
Collective, accountability.
Yeah.
Everyone's held to the same standard.
Yep.
Everyone's held to the same promise.
Yep.
The same commitment.
It removes all that finger pointing. Well, you said that you were going to get it done and you haven't. Therefore,
Yeah.
you're a really shit person.
And also, I think people then go, "Oh, well, Jenny didn't do hers. Why am I going to do mine?"
Right.
I mean,
Again,
it's-
removes that blame game.
Yeah, 100%.
That sideways or upward blame game. But it also removes the excuses, because if you made a promise to me under that concept and I said to you, hey, Nick, you promised you'd get that done by yesterday and you didn't, you then don't have to go and try and think of reasons or excuses, or you just go, you know what, Mark, you're right. It'll get done today.
Yeah.
Or it'll get done tomorrow. Like
Whatever that
whatever's
is,
agreed. Yeah.
but just as long as it's resolved.
Right. I think the second potential answer to that is, you're right, I'm sorry, but let me explain to you the compelling reason why. But then I think that the extension of that is, but I'm sorry I didn't give you that compelling reason beforehand. Because if I promised something to you and I didn't deliver on it, it's incumbent on me to come to you and go, hey, mate, I'm not going to meet that deadline, and here's why. If I don't do that and I have to wait till you come to me, then that's my bad. So an apology for that bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I guess the advantage of having a process like that too is that the person who isn't going to be able to achieve what they set out to, what they promised to,
Yep.
feels comfortable enough to come and communicate that to you beforehand. Because I feel like sitting on the other side of it,
Yep.
maybe a lot of the times they go, well, why didn't you come and tell me beforehand? Well, they didn't feel comfortable enough. They felt like they were going to get,
Berated.
Yeah, right. So there was a fear there and anxiety there to go and make that contact beforehand, thinking that they could still solve the issue, even though they knew that it was long gone.
Yep.
Right. And I think that's what a lot of people get stuck in, that trap. And really all that comes down to is communication and the ability to, and openness to communicate with your team.
Yep.
And if you have a process like that where you are all accountable, you're all part of it,
Yep.
that communication is almost a given.
Yeah.
It's much easier anyway to do that, I feel.
That's a really interesting thing, because I think sometimes you have to look at, how do I remove that fear? How do I remove the fear that people might have about coming to me and saying, I'm not going to meet a deadline, I'm not going to meet an obligation. And I think if you can, I'm a fan of simplifying things, but if you can simplify it to, hey, this is the response, it's, I'm sorry, I'll do it today, or look, I'm sorry, I should have explained to you why, this compelling reason, I should have got in front of it, then they don't have to fear anymore that they're going to get some horrible, being berated because something didn't get done the way it should have been done within the time frame as promised.
Yeah, I think that it gives them that confidence to know that, well, as long as I can, give a guarantee of when it's going to get done by, I know when it can get done by. It's not getting done when I set it by, but I'm getting on the front foot. I'm able to go and give a guarantee of when it is going to be done by. That's a much less daunting prospect to approach than what would be if it had already passed, the time had already passed. You know what I mean? So getting on the front foot of that sort of stuff is only beneficial for everyone in the process.
Paves the way, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
All right. The 100% say do, thanks to Sharon Srivastava. I love it. Put it into your business, 100% say do. I think with a couple of potential responses, which is, I'm sorry, I didn't get it done, I'll get it done today. Or I'm sorry I didn't come to you first and let you know why, but here's a really compelling reason why it didn't happen. Nick, we've spoken about the 100% say do. Let's talk about the NFA. So if this was a G-rated program or PG, that would be no fooling around. For all the adults listening, it's the no fucking around. The concept of this is that if there is a sequence of events or a sequence of communications going on within your business and somebody sees it, and usually it's somebody outside the immediate circle, sees it and goes, you know what, guys, can we just stop fucking around with this? Like, we can actually... and you actually shared with me an example of it the other day that was happening within the Metropole group.
Yeah, there was a lot of back and forth of trying to organise a meeting, I think, between a few different few different
Stakeholders, yeah.
a few different people that are a bit higher up, and obviously everyone's busy, so trying to organise a time that suited everybody was difficult to say the least. And
Herding cats a little bit.
yes, and it was a little bit of pulling hair and setting a date and then changing and then all that sort of stuff. So there was a lot of back and forth, and then I believe you jumped in with a limo and say, guys, let's just pick a date and get it done. Just make it work.
Right.
I think that it gets to a point sometimes when you just have to. You just
Yep.
have to do that. You just have to be like, guys, we're just going round in circles.
Yep.
Can we just, no matter whatever else is going on, let's just get it done.
Yep.
Let's make it work.
So you're right. I was involved in that email trail, and I could just see, can 3 o'clock Friday work? Oh, no, I can't do 3 o'clock Friday. And then finally, one email went across, how about Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock? And I just jumped in and went, you know what, guys? Let's everybody just make that work.
Yeah, Tuesday at 9 o'clock it is.
If you've got something in your calendar, shift it.
Yeah.
Just that is it. We've got to make it work. And that, for me, I had in my mind at the time I sent that email, by the way, was the NFA concept.
Yep.
It was very, very clear in my mind. That's where I wanted to go. I had an example probably, a year ago, where I was involved in an email trail between two people, and there was about, 12 or 13 emails, right, going back and forth. And I jumped in and said, guys, no more emails. Pick the phone up.
Yeah.
Now, I did appreciate the irony of the fact that I did that in an email. Right?
Yes.
I did appreciate that irony.
Yes.
But
Sure, they would have appreciated it.
I'm sure they would have as well. But again, that was an example of the NFA concept as well. Can we stop mucking around with sending emails back and forth?
Isn't solving anything.
Right. People think the phone weighs 3 ton. I mean, it doesn't. Pick the goddamn phone up and solve it.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of the times with any of that sort of stuff, things can get taken the wrong way. I think especially through emails, a phone or a conversation or face-to-face or anything like that, you're less likely to have your words misunderstood or anything like that. So.
You're right. Now, I'm pleased you've raised that because I can give you a real-world example. This was a company that we consulted with a number of years ago in the copier game, right? And we had a situation where their accountant, their internal accountant, was really struggling to get reports out in time. So the sales director sent an email to the head accountant saying, I can see you're struggling to get these reports out on time. I have 2 account clerks, if you like, 2 account people. I'm going to second them to you.
Right.
The accountant went into the MD and tendered her resignation and said, I'm not having the sales director tell me I can't do my job and that he's sending his people in to make me do my job. Right?
Completely took it the wrong way.
Right. And the sales director was just dumbfounded going, no, dude, I was trying to help you.
Yeah.
So, but instead, this is probably a bit of a pet hate of mine, but here's the great irony. They sat,
A few steps away from each other.
18 paces away from each other.
Yeah.
If the sales director had popped his head in the accountant's door and gone, dude, I can see you're really struggling. I've got a couple of spare people. Would you like me to flick them across to you just to take a bit of pressure off?
I think it's that initial uncomfortable, I don't know the right word, but the initial sort of being uncomfortable, having that uncomfortable conversation is much better than, your words being taken out of context, going back and forth through emails. If you just had that initial no bullshit conversation, nothing would have been misunderstood, would have never have gotten to that point.
Yeah.
And you think about, the accountant's gone and handed in their resignation.
Yep.
How long was that time period between the email was sent, between they went and handed in their resignation? You know what I mean? So they themselves didn't even get up and go into the sales director's office and say, hey, what are you talking about?
Yeah. What are you going on about?
Before they've gone to the effort of handing in their resignation. So I think it's definitely much easier to have that little bit of uncomfortableness at the start.
They just trucked Dolly out of the pram. So the concept of the NFA is this. If you see something going on in your business and whether you're the business owner, whether you're a leader in the business, wherever you fit into it, you see something going on that you can go, you know what? There's just a whole bunch of fucking around going on here that we could fix, that somebody can jump in, because sometimes you actually need that circuit breaker.
Oh, 100%.
Right? So that email trail the other day you were talking about with the appointment probably could potentially have gone on for a couple more emails.
I guarantee you it would have.
Yeah, oh, no, I can't do that time. I can't. If somebody hadn't come in and gone, guys, you know what? And so you were in that meeting. Was it a productive meeting?
Oh, very. It was very, very good. And there's another one set up. So, yeah.
Right. Another one set up. So good. So by getting in and being that circuit breaker.
Do you know how it was set up? We're all still together talking.
Right.
In
Isn't
the
that
Zoom.
interesting?
That line of communication was much easier because we were all there. We were all able to look at our calendars and communicate together what works and what doesn't, rather than going back and forth. And that's where, text and messages and emails can just be such a drawn out process for something that needed to be a quick 30-second conversation locked into a calendar. Took, hours and several emails. So it's also about, time saving, being more efficient too, isn't it?
Well, again, because this is all about productivity.
Yeah.
Interesting, because you've just raised, and probably the final little point we're making this episode, the concept of BAM FAM. Right? I'm a big fan of BAM FAM.
Yep.
And BAM FAM is book a meeting from a meeting.
Yes.
Right? Because what you did was you booked a meeting from a meeting.
Yep. Don't walk away and then try and do it later.
Right. Everybody's there.
Yeah.
When are we going to meet next? Everybody's got their calendar on their phones these days. You can pull out your phones. You're on a Zoom. Everybody's there together. Next Tuesday at 9 or 10 or whatever. That works. Let's lock it in.
Yeah.
So I love BAM FAM.
It's very. That's what I do with my video clients. We do a shoot. We finish the shoot, wrap it all up. We're done for the day. We've got all our content in for the day, and we go, okay, what date have we got next month? What works best next month? And just lock it in right there and then. So then you've got the next 4 weeks to map it out, plan out everything you want to do content-wise, have time to think about it. You've got time to prepare for it. And that way it's just in there. It's solid gold. You know what I mean?
I like it. Hey, mate, we've covered a few things in this episode. In fact, we started off with 2 things. It was the 100% say do.
Yep.
And how you implement that into your business. Then we spoke about the NFA, no fooling around, no fucking around concept. But we also talked about the value of actual conversations over emails.
Yeah, definitely.
And how context can be taken out when you're just emailing.
Yes.
And then we also spoke about the real value of BAM FAM. Right? Book a meeting from a meeting.
The whole idea of all of that really is to make everything just work a little bit smoother, isn't it?
Right. Better productivity.
Yep.
Through better efficiency, better efficacy.
Yep.
And I think the other thing, Nick, that you mentioned is that it all comes down to communication. And if you look at all of those things, they all revolve around communication.
Yep. And then that in turn, leads to rapport with your team and stuff as well.
Yeah, 100%.
If you've got good rapport with your team, if you know your team, you're more than likely to have better communication with them, aren't you?
Cool. I mean, these are the sort of things that we work with our mastermind clients in all the time. So if you'd like to know more about that, metropolemastermind.com.au, share, subscribe to the podcast. If you've got something else that you think would really help with productivity within a business and some ideas that you've got, I don't know, maybe there's something we've missed in these conversations.
Yeah, easily. I'm sure we have.
Drop it into the comments. Let us know. We'd love to hear about it. And then until then and the next episode of the Mastermind for Business podcast, please make sure you spend time with those who matter most. Nick, thank you, mate. Look forward to catching up in the next episode.
Cheers.